The 3 years that we were married, Ethan Vance never once touched me. Our home was quiet, our rooms were separate, and our lives ran on parallel tracks that never intersected. Then one day, his beloved Khloe, the woman from his past he had never truly forgotten, announced her engagement to someone else on social media. She was living abroad, and the news seemed to be her final chapter in a life that no longer included him. That very same night, Ethan, the proud and untouchable heir of the Vance family, came home drunk. He was a man who was always in control, but tonight he had drowned himself in alcohol, lost in a sorrow he couldn't hide. He stumbled through the house and found his way into my room, mistaking it for his own. For the first time in our entire marriage, he reached for me, and we spent the night together in a blur of his grief and my silent confusion. 3 months passed. I stood in the bathroom, staring down at the pregnancy report in my hand. My heart was filled with a fragile, fluttering hope. I had prepared myself to share the news with him, imagining, perhaps foolishly, that this could be a new beginning for us. But all I received in return was his voice over the phone, as cold and merciless as a winter wind. "Khloe has broken off her engagement?" he stated flatly. "She is coming back to see me. You need to get rid of that child, and then we will get a divorce." A sharp, twisting pain clenched deep in my lower belly, as if his words were a physical blow. But strangely, underneath the initial shock, a kind of peace began to settle in my chest. The long, exhausting fight was over. "Fine," I said quietly, my voice surprisingly even. "Then a divorce it is. I hope you and Khloe grow old together." I had always harbored a secret suspicion that Ethan would never want this baby. So when I first saw the 2 pink lines on the test, I said nothing to him. I waited. When we returned to the family estate for our regular visit, his grandparents and his uncle Leo were all present. I knew the timing was finally right. If I had any chance to keep this child, I needed the elders' support. With fingers that trembled slightly, I handed the folded report to Ethan in front of everyone. He took it, unfolded it, and his brow furrowed deeply as he read. His cold eyes flicked toward me, and I saw a flash of pure disdain. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that he did not want this child. But I did. I wanted this baby with all my heart. This child was a miracle, a tiny gift I had quietly longed for after 3 lonely years of waiting in a silent marriage. Just that one night, and I had conceived. I would not give up so easily. "Grandpa, Grandma," I said, my voice coming out clearer and steadier than I felt. "I'm pregnant, 3 months along." Their faces instantly lit up. They clapped their hands in unrestrained joy, repeating the word, "Wonderful, wonderful." Grandma, with tears of happiness glistening in her eyes, carefully took off her treasured emerald bracelet and slipped it onto my wrist. "Oh, Ava," she said, her voice choked with tears. "We have waited so long for a great-grandchild. I thought I would not live to see this day, and now, here it is. I must go right now to the ancestral hall and share this good news with my son and daughter-in-law." With that, she and Grandpa left the room, their steps full of purpose as they went to burn incense and deliver the happy news to Ethan's late parents. As soon as they were out of sight, the quiet, joyful air in the room shattered. Ethan suddenly exploded, slamming the table with a loud crack as he roared my name. "Ava Morgan!" My heart jumped into my throat. I was afraid, but I forced myself to lift my head and meet his furious gaze. His handsome face was twisted with rage, and veins bulged at his temple and neck. The sharp, elegant lines of his features now made him look almost cruel. "I saw you take the pills myself," he shouted, his voice echoing in the large room. "And yet you still ended up pregnant. Now you bring this to my grandparents to corner me. I underestimated you." He let out a cold, humorless laugh that sent a shiver down my spine. Then came the accusations, the same ones he had held against me for years. "You have always been manipulative," he snapped. "You are the one who set everything up with Khloe. She was devastated and left the country because of you. You pretended to be the obedient, gentle wife for 3 years, but this is the real you, isn't it? You calculated everything. But I am telling you now, I do not want this child. Khloe is coming back. The only woman who will bear my child is her. You will go to the hospital and you will have this baby removed." He grabbed my wrist roughly and started dragging me toward the door, but I wrenched my arm free with all the strength I had left. Ethan looked startled, clearly not expecting someone as obedient as I had always been to finally defy him. Tears I could no longer hold back slipped down my cheeks. I turned to face him fully. It had been 3 years. 3 long, empty years, and still, no matter what I did, I could not warm his heart. His heart had always belonged to Khloe. Whenever she was around, nothing else mattered. The rest of the world simply ceased to exist, and I had lost completely and utterly. Ethan, listen to me, I said firmly. What happened to Khloe 3 years ago had absolutely nothing to do with me. If you want a divorce, I will not stop you, but this child is mine. You have no right to take it away. 3 years ago marked the 4th year I had loved Ethan. That was when he fell for Khloe, a scholarship student from a poor background. He pursued her with a relentless passion, sparing no expense and throwing her an extravagant birthday party where all the sons and daughters of the wealthy elite were invited. He wanted to make sure Khloe felt like a queen. But that night, something went terribly wrong. Someone had spiked the drinks. In the chaos that followed, all 3 of us, Ethan, Khloe, and I, were drugged. Ethan and I ended up together. Khloe, tragically, was taken advantage of by a bartender. The rumors spread like wildfire. People began pointing fingers at me. They called me a scheming, shameless, and ruthless woman. They said I had planned everything, trapping both Ethan and Khloe with one single, evil move. No matter how hard I tried to explain, no one would listen. Khloe attempted to end her life more than once, and Ethan stayed by her side through it all. The once proud son of a powerful family got down on his knees, begging her to live, again and again. Eventually, Khloe agreed to keep living, but she refused to stay in this city that had brought her so much pain. With help from the Vance family, she left the country. After she left, Ethan went quiet for a long time. Then, he married Maya, cold, resentful marriage full of his unspoken hatred. Every day he spent with me was an act of punishment. He treated me as a target for all the pain and sorrow Khloe had endured. I had hoped that time would change things, that one day Ethan would come to see the truth, that I had never been that kind of woman, that I would never destroy another girl's innocence for my own gain. But I had been wrong, so very wrong. I placed a hand gently on my stomach and looked at him, speaking slowly and clearly. Ethan, I will agree to the divorce. I will not keep walking down this wrong path. Ethan's eyes flickered for a moment, a brief flash of some unreadable emotion, but he quickly regained his composure. He said coldly, "We will go to the registry first thing in the morning. If you back out, I swear you will regret it." I gave a short, bitter laugh. "Even if you begged me now, I would not change my mind. This marriage is over." "It better be," Ethan muttered. With that, he turned and walked out of the villa. The moment he left, my strength gave way and I collapsed onto the couch. The floor was warm from the underfloor heating, but I still felt unbearably cold. I curled up tightly, hugging my knees to my chest, and shut my eyes in silent despair. A sound reached my ears, soft footsteps growing closer. Then came a faint scent of cologne, clean and warm. Suddenly, I felt something draped over me. I opened my eyes slowly. Ethan's uncle, Leo, was kneeling beside me, his eyes gentle as he looked at me. He had covered me with his own suit jacket. He said calmly, "No need to force a smile if you don't feel like it. A divorce might be the best thing for you. Once you are free, you will have your life back." His words brought a strange warmth to my heart. I had thought he would side with Ethan without question, that he would lash out at me like the others. But he didn't. Uncle Leo stood up, ready to leave. Without thinking, I reached out and gently grabbed his hand. His palm was warm, and for a moment, I didn't want to let go. But just as I was beginning to feel the comfort of that touch, a teasing voice broke through from above. "What's this? You're into me now?" Leo said with a smirk. "We could try something after your divorce tomorrow if you like, but not now. You're still my nephew's wife. I don't do incest." Leo had always been a bit of a playboy, someone who spent more time in clubs than at family dinners. Flirtatious comments like that rolled off his tongue as easily as breathing. But his bluntness made my cheeks flush with embarrassment. I quickly pulled my hand away as if I'd been shocked by electricity and lowered my head. "Uncle," I murmured, "you misunderstood. I just wanted to ask if you really believe I had nothing to do with what happened to Khloe." Leo nodded casually. "Yeah, I believe you. You're not that clever." I blinked. Well, that was unnecessarily honest. I gave a bitter little laugh and muttered, "Even you believe me, but Ethan doesn't. He must really despise me." Leo waved a hand. All right, enough self-pity. It's all over tomorrow anyway. I have plans tonight. If you need anything, call me. With that, he left. And I was alone in the villa. Outside, night crept in. Snow fell steadily, blanketing the ground in silence. I couldn't sleep. I sat on the sofa all night, my eyes open, watching the sky turn pale with the dawn. This marriage, at last, was coming to an end. I sent Ethan a message. Come pick me up. Let's go get the divorce. His reply came instantly. You're such a hassle. Take a taxi or ask the driver. His cold response was sharper than the winter wind outside. In the past, when Ethan called me troublesome, I would swallow my pride and try to smooth things over, try to keep the peace. But not this time. Not today. I let the frustration and bitterness that had been building inside me for 3 years pour out in a message. There are no taxis in the villa area. The driver took Grandma and Grandpa to the cemetery yesterday. I haven't slept all night, and I cannot drive safely. If I had any other option, I would not have asked you. You are the one in a hurry to get divorced, not me. There was a long silence before he finally replied, Wait. For the first time in one of our arguments, I had won, and it felt strangely satisfying. Ethan arrived shortly after. We sat in a tense, heavy silence, driving toward the civil affairs office. Not a single word passed between us. Then his phone rang. I glanced at the screen. The name Sweetie alone was intimate enough to send a chill through me. It was probably one of Ethan's women, but it no longer mattered who. Ethan's hand trembled as he hit the brakes suddenly and answered the call. The jolt made my body lurch forward, and the seatbelt dug sharply into my stomach. Pain stabbed through me, and I winced involuntarily. Hello, Khloe? Ethan's voice was uncertain, almost shaky. The name Khloe made my breath catch. It felt as if a cold hand had wrapped around my throat. Then I heard her voice through the phone, soft, delicate, but every word was clear. Yes, Ethan, I just landed back in Harbor City. It's snowing and the roads are bad. I can't get a taxi. Can you come get me? I'm really cold. Ethan's voice lit up like I had never heard before. Of course! I'm on my way, Khloe. Wait for me. In all 3 years of our marriage, I had never seen him this happy. As he ended the call, he turned to me. The joy on his face disappeared in an instant. With visible irritation, he pointed to the door. Get out. I'm going to pick up Khloe. This time, I didn't give in either. I turned to Ethan and said coldly, Do you have any shred of humanity left? I'm pregnant, and it's freezing outside. Are you seriously asking me to get out of the car? Ethan replied without hesitation. Yes. I never intended to pick you up in the first place. I have already gone out of my way for you. This stretch of road is more than generous. Get out of the car, Ava. Without thinking, I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. The sound of the slap echoed sharply inside the vehicle. Ethan was stunned for a second. Then he clenched his jaw and glared at me with fury. You really think I wouldn't hit you back? I stared him down and said firmly, If you dare lay a finger on me, I swear we are not getting divorced. I will make sure you never get the chance to marry your precious sweetheart. I had struck right where it hurt. Ethan fell silent, knowing I wasn't bluffing. He had no choice but to drive me to file for the divorce first. On the way, he kept messaging Khloe, clearly trying to comfort her. Since it wasn't convenient to type while driving, he sent her a voice message. I'll be there soon. Wait for me. This time, don't let go of my hand. Hearing his voice so full of false affection made my stomach churn. I couldn't help but interrupt him. You really have no shame, do you? We are still legally married. This is cheating, Ethan. He scoffed and snapped back without hesitation, dragging up an old accusation. Shameless? You want to talk about shameless? You drugged me. That's how low you are. My anger surged. Ethan! I shouted. How many times do I have to say it before you believe me? I did not drug you. There were so many people there that night. Why do you always assume it was me? He remained skeptical and let out a dismissive grunt. Unable to take the false accusation any longer, I made a vow. If I really was the one who drugged you, then let my baby die inside me. No mother would ever curse her own child unless she was speaking the absolute truth. For a moment, Ethan's expression changed. He frowned and seemed to waver. His tone softened slightly. Was it really not you? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My head was spinning. My stomach churned and a dull pain throbbed in my abdomen. Even speaking felt unbearable. Maybe it was because I hadn't slept all night. I closed my eyes, trying to rest. Then Ethan's phone rang again. The sharp tone made my headache worse. I couldn't help but frown and mutter, "If you want to flirt, get out and do it somewhere else. Don't make me listen to your disgusting little love talk. I feel like throwing up." Ethan responded quietly, "It's my uncle calling." Hearing that, I softened a bit. Ethan answered the call. "Hello, uncle?" Leo's anxious voice came through the speaker. "Bring Ava to the hospital right now. Your grandmother fell. She hit her head. The doctor says it doesn't look good." Without a word, Ethan turned the wheel and sped toward the First General Hospital. Outside the operating room, the air was thick with tension. Grandfather sat hunched on a chair, his face buried in his hands. The guilt on his face was almost tangible. Leo stood nearby, leaning against the wall, his expression heavy with sorrow. Ethan quietly walked over, knelt down beside his grandfather, and asked softly, "How is she?" Grandfather looked dazed, as if his mind had gone blank. He couldn't speak. It was Leo who finally answered, his voice low and strained. "It's not good. A cerebral hemorrhage. The doctor said she might end up in a vegetative state." The moment those words landed, the word vegetative hit Ethan like a blow to the chest. His legs gave out beneath him, and he collapsed into a chair beside his grandfather, completely drained. Years ago, his parents had died in a car accident. The word vegetative had haunted Ethan ever since. Even now, his hands trembled slightly. I reached out and gently rested a hand on his shoulder. Hoping to calm him, I said softly, "It's just a possibility. Don't lose hope. She's strong, she'll be all right." Ethan's eyes lit up faintly, as if clinging to the fragile thread of that hope. Just then, his phone began to ring. The caller ID flashed. "Sweetie?" I withdrew my hand from his shoulder. Ethan glanced at the screen, his eyes flickering. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but no words came. Instead, he stood up and walked away to take the call in private. When he returned a few minutes later, at least he had the decency not to leave to meet Khloe at such a critical moment. The surgery continued on. I hadn't slept all night and could hardly stay on my feet, but I didn't want to sit next to Ethan, so I leaned against the wall beside Leo. In a hushed voice, Leo asked, "Have you filed for divorce yet?" I shook my head. "No, I haven't had the chance." He looked at me again. "Do you still plan to go through with it?" I nodded slowly. I was tired in a way that no amount of sleep could fix. Even if I could have endured for the sake of our child, Khloe had returned, and there was no longer any space for me in Ethan's heart. "I will," I said quietly. "Khloe has already come back and canceled her engagement. If I stay, I will only become a joke." Just as I finished speaking, the elevator doors opened. Khloe stepped out, dragging a suitcase behind her. It had been years since I had seen her, and she looked different, more mature, more composed. Gone was the cautious, naive college girl from before. She now carried herself with confidence and ease. She scanned the room quickly, then walked straight toward Ethan. Without hesitation, she knelt in front of him and took his hand in hers, like it was the most natural thing in the world. In a soft, familiar voice, she said, "Ethan, I'm back." Their closeness was hard to watch, so I turned my gaze elsewhere. Ethan looked down at her, surprised. "Khloe, what are you doing here? I told you to wait at the villa. Your hands are freezing. Are you cold?" Khloe smiled gently. "I was worried about you and about your grandmother. I couldn't rest until I saw you both, but don't worry, I'm not cold." Grandfather, who had been silent, suddenly stood up and roughly pulled their hands apart. He rose so quickly that he staggered a little, his legs unsteady. Khloe, being the closest, quickly reached out to steady him. "Please, Grandfather, don't get worked up. Your health is more important." But once he caught his breath, Grandfather pushed her hand away. His voice rose sharply with emotion. "Don't call me Grandfather. I am not your grandfather. You are not needed here. Leave. My grandson and his wife are doing just fine. You have no right to interfere in their lives." His chest heaved with every breath, his emotions clearly overwhelming him. Ethan was gently patting his grandfather's back to help him breathe more easily as he spoke up in defense of Khloe. "Grandpa, Khloe meant well. You were too harsh with your words." But that only made Grandpa even more upset. "Meant well?" Grandpa snapped, his voice rising with fury. "If she really meant well, she would have stayed away from you for the rest of her life. Ava is newly pregnant. What is she supposed to think with Khloe showing up like this? Ethan, let me be very clear. Ava has never done anything to betray you. But if you ever betray her, then you are no grandson of mine." His firm words brought a warmth to my heart. Having someone stand up for me, especially someone like Grandpa, felt like shelter in a storm. But deep down, I also knew that someone this kind and protective would no longer be part of my life in the future. Khloe turned to look at me. Her expression was one of disbelief, and something flickered in her eyes. Though it was gone in a second, she quickly regained her composure and forced a polite, empty smile. "Ava," she said, her voice sickeningly sweet, "you're pregnant. Congratulations." I replied with a simple, courteous, "Thank you." Then she turned to Ethan, her tone dropping to one of gentle pleading. "I may not be welcome here, but what about you, Ethan? Do you want me back in the country?" Without a moment's pause, Ethan answered, "Of course I do." Hearing that, Khloe gave a serene, harmless smile as if nothing had been wrong to begin with. Grandpa, now fuming, was trying to calm his breathing again. I immediately stepped forward and began rubbing his back softly, saying, "Ethan, please don't upset Grandpa." Ethan said nothing. Khloe reached for the handle of her suitcase. "Since I'm not welcome here, I'll come back another time," she said gently. She was just about to step into the elevator when the doors to the operating room opened. Grandma was wheeled out on a stretcher. Seeing that, Khloe turned around and followed the group of family members who were escorting Grandma to the intensive care unit. After Grandma was settled, Khloe volunteered to go out and buy food and toiletries. If she wanted to act like a maid, I wasn't going to stop her. I simply said nothing. No one responded to her offer. She just went on her way as if no one's silence mattered. Ethan moved as if he was going to follow her, but Grandpa reached out and stopped him. "Some people just don't know shame," Grandpa muttered coldly. "If she wants to run errands like a servant, let her. Ethan, you are not a servant. Do not lose your dignity." His words carried more weight than usual, especially when he emphasized, "Do not lose your dignity." The warning was clear, but Ethan still seemed like he wanted to follow. The air was tense until Khloe turned back and spoke gently. "Ethan, just wait here. I can manage on my own. If Grandma wakes up and can't see you, she might get upset." Her words were just right soft, sensible, and enough to stop Ethan in his tracks. In the end, Khloe took care of everything herself. She returned alone, carrying several heavy bags. The food she brought back came from one of the food stalls outside the hospital. It was greasy and overly salty. Just looking at it made me lose my appetite. I reached out and quietly pushed the food tray farther away. Grandpa noticed and immediately turned to Khloe. "This food doesn't suit my granddaughter-in-law. Go get something else." Khloe froze for a second. I thought she might finally snap, but she kept her pleasant tone and turned to me. "All right, Ava. What would you like to eat?" she asked softly. Before I could answer, Ethan slammed his chopsticks hard on the table. "This is going too far, Ava. If you want something else, why don't you go buy it yourself? Khloe is not your maid." Watching Ethan behave like a clown, flailing in frustration, I felt an odd sense of calm. My tone was steady as I threw the question back at him. I said, "Did I force Khloe to go shopping? Was it not her own decision? Ethan, we are still married, and here you are defending another woman in front of everyone. Have you no shame?" At that moment, Grandpa reacted with great alarm. He reached out and grabbed my arm. "I will not allow it," he said sternly. "You are carrying the next heir of the Vance family. I forbid you to get a divorce." Then he turned to Ethan, his voice rising with anger. "If you dare divorce Ava and marry Khloe, you will not see a single penny of the Vance fortune." Ethan's temper ignited. He looked at my grandfather without a hint of hesitation and said coldly, "I don't want it. I don't need it. Khloe is my entire world. If I have her, I have everything I need." With that, he took Khloe by the hand and stormed out of the hospital. My grandfather was so enraged that he collapsed on the spot. No matter how loudly I shouted or how hard I shook him, he did not respond. Doctors rushed in and immediately began emergency treatment. The diagnosis came quickly. "Cerebral infarction, a stroke." In a panic, I called Ethan. He rejected the call. I called again. He rejected it again. On the third attempt, he finally answered. Before I could even tell him that grandfather had collapsed, he cut in sharply. "Let's get this divorce over with." I replied calmly, "I'll see you at the registry." Then I hung up. From that moment forward, my grandparents, myself, and my child would have nothing more to do with Ethan. Let him go and live his life with his so-called whole world. Leo stayed behind at the hospital, watching over grandfather. A driver took me to the Civil Affairs Bureau. On the way there, I reviewed a legal document my lawyer had quickly prepared. It stated clearly that Ethan would leave the marriage with nothing and be formally disassociated from the Vance family. I printed it out. When I arrived, I handed it to Ethan at the registry office. "Sign this and we will divorce. Then you can marry Khloe. If you refuse, there will be no divorce." Without even glancing up, Ethan took the pen and signed his name. The paperwork went through quickly. Not even an hour later, he rushed off with Khloe and registered their marriage. He couldn't even hide the smug smile on his face. I looked at him one more time and offered a quiet warning. "Until my grandfather recovers, I hope you will not say anything you will regret." Ethan scoffed, then said confidently, "I love my grandparents more than you ever could. I don't need your advice." I gave a cold, humorless laugh. We would see if he still had the courage to say that once he stepped into the intensive care unit and saw grandfather lying unconscious, connected to tubes. In the days that followed, Ethan came to the hospital often to see my grandmother. Each day he looked a little more worn out. He had left the marriage with nothing, no inheritance, no family support. Now that the money was gone, the glamorous life he was used to had vanished too. He who had always lived like royalty was finally learning what it meant to struggle. Even the exhaustion on his face seemed somehow fitting. Every time Ethan visited, he would ask the same question. "Where is Grandpa?" I always brushed him off casually. "Grandpa doesn't want to see you. He's avoiding you." He never pressed further after that. Fortunately, Leo had been busy handling the company's business transition. Otherwise, if he and Ethan had crossed paths, a fight would have been inevitable. 4 days later, Grandma regained consciousness and was moved out of intensive care into a regular hospital room. I called Ethan to let him know, but I was not expecting Khloe to show up with him. Just before they entered the room, I stepped in front of Ethan, blocking his way. "What are you trying to do by bringing Khloe here? What if you upset Grandma again?" Before Ethan could respond, Khloe stepped forward with a calm expression and said, "Don't worry, I just want to see her from outside. I won't go in or disturb her." Since she said that, I said nothing more. I allowed her to stay in the hallway while Ethan and I entered the room together. Grandma lay quietly on the bed, her breathing assisted by oxygen. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she tried to speak, but her voice was so weak and slurred that we could hardly understand a word. Both Ethan and I gently urged her not to speak and to save her energy. I leaned close and said softly, "Everything is fine, Grandma. Ethan and I are doing well. The family is peaceful and the baby is healthy. Please don't worry. Focus on getting better and we will all go home together for the new year." Ethan reached out and held my hand, showing it to Grandma as he added, "Yes, everything is going well, Grandma. Don't worry. Ava and I are happy now." Grandma nodded slowly, clearly relieved. I wiped her tears away with a tissue. Once she had fallen back asleep, we stepped quietly out of the room. Khloe was waiting outside, her expression pale and tight with emotion. She must have overheard everything we said inside. Clearly, she could not bear it, but those words were meant for Grandma. They had to be said, and no one owed Khloe any sympathy. I watched as Ethan stepped into the elevator. Just as the doors were closing, a nurse called out urgently, "Family of the patient in ICU bed 8, Mr. Vance is awake." "I'm here," I answered quickly, then called Leo on the phone as I hurried down the hall toward the ICU, ready to prepare Grandpa for his transfer to a regular room. After gathering his belongings and completing the paperwork, I stepped out of the ICU and right there, walking straight toward me, were Ethan and Khloe. Grandpa saw them. His heart monitor spiked. I rushed forward and quickly pulled the two of them aside, leading them out of Grandpa's sight. Ethan looked genuinely panicked. "What is going on with Grandpa?" he asked, his voice shaking. I looked at him and answered honestly, "He saw you. That day you walked out with Khloe. It triggered a stroke." Ethan stared at me, stunned. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice raised. "Why would I tell you?" I shot back. "Don't forget, you already cut ties with Grandpa. You made your decision. Everything about him now has nothing to do with you." Ethan stood frozen, speechless. Khloe tugged at Ethan's sleeve, her face full of disbelief as she asked, "What do you mean by cutting ties with your family? You told me you left home in a moment of anger. You said once your grandfather calmed down, you would go back to the Vance family. Were you lying to me? Does that mean you're broke now and you'll stay broke?" Ethan's expression changed instantly. He reached out and gripped Khloe's shoulders tightly. Why would you ask me something like that? Are you telling me you were only with me for the money? Khloe quickly shook her head. Of course not. But the panic in her eyes betrayed her. She cared about the money very much. Khloe softened her tone, returning to her usual gentle demeanor. I just hate seeing families torn apart. Your grandfather loves you, and you love him too. You shouldn't let things end like this. Her noble-sounding words worked. Ethan, moved by what he wanted to believe, pulled her into his arms. I could only feel sick to my stomach. I turned away from their cloying display and walked into the hospital room. Ethan followed behind me. Inside, my grandfather's vital signs, which had just stabilized, began to spike the moment he saw Ethan. Without hesitation, Ethan dropped to his knees beside the bed. "Grandpa?" He choked. "I'm sorry, I was wrong, I shouldn't have fought with you. Please get better, please." Grandfather struggled to raise his hand toward him. Ethan leaned in, took his hand gently, and held it tight. I couldn't help but think, if only he had realized all of this sooner. Now, the room was quiet except for the soft beeping of medical machines and the faint sound of someone weeping. So when a nurse's voice came from the hallway, "Bed 6 is crashing," it cut through the silence like a knife. Bed 6 was my grandmother's. Realizing what was happening, Ethan and I rushed out of the room. As we reached the doorway, Ethan paused and turned to reassure our grandfather. "It's all right. Ava and I are just stepping out to check something. We'll be right back." I hurried down the hall toward VIP, room 6. Inside, doctors were frantically trying to revive my grandmother. And there, standing to the side, was Khloe. There was no need to ask. It was clear something she said had triggered this. Fury rising in my chest, I stepped forward and slapped her across the face. "What did you do?" I demanded. Khloe recoiled quickly, trying to defend herself. "I didn't do anything." I glared at her and said coldly, "This room has surveillance. Whatever you did, we will know soon enough. And if anything happens to my grandmother, Khloe, I swear you will not get away with it." Her panic was visible. "There are cameras? Why would there be cameras in here?" Of course there were. VIP rooms in private hospitals are built for high-profile patients. The hospital needs accountability, so they are always under surveillance. But that was a world Khloe was unfamiliar with. She had no idea she had been watched the entire time. Just then, the nurse assigned to assist my grandmother walked in late, her face pale with fear. Seeing the scene before her, she sank to the ground. She dropped to her knees at my feet and began pleading. "Miss, I never thought something like this would happen. I only stepped out for a moment. I swear I didn't mean for this to happen." I ignored her. My eyes were fixed on my grandmother, silently praying she would pull through. But heaven must not have heard me. The sound of the heart monitor grew faster, then irregular. Beep, 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 then a long, flat tone. The doctors sighed, one after another. The attending physician walked up to me, his face heavy with regret, and offered a quiet apology. "We did everything we could. Her vital signs had stabilized. We don't understand what triggered such a sudden and intense reaction." I shot a sharp glance at Khloe. "Check the surveillance footage," I said. The VIP hospital room had cameras installed. While the nurse pulled up the recordings, Ethan arrived at the ward. When he saw his grandmother lying still, no sign of life left in her, he collapsed to the floor. "Grandma, please open your eyes. It's me, Ethan," he cried, his voice shaking with desperation. But no matter how many times he called, there was no answer. The footage began to play. In the room, Grandma had been calm until Khloe entered. The moment she saw Khloe, her heart rate and breathing spiked. When Khloe pulled out a marriage certificate, the numbers on the monitor surged dangerously. In the recording, Khloe bent down with a sickly sweet smile and said, "Grandma, Ethan, and Ava are divorced now. I'm the one married to him. I'm your real granddaughter-in-law now." She leaned closer, her tone shameless. "Ethan is your grandson, right? That means his money is yours, and your money is his. So, can you give me some? Just a little? I'm really desperate. I mean it. I'm drowning in debt." Grandma, through clenched teeth, growled, "In your dreams." Khloe unfolded the marriage certificate with a smug grin. "What do you mean in my dreams? This is real. Everything I said is true. Oh, and by the way, Ava had a miscarriage. I'm the only one who can give you a great-grandchild now. Give me the money and I'll get pregnant right away." Those words, those lies, broke Grandma completely. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stormed over to Khloe, grabbed her by the hair, and slapped her hard across the face. She tried to fight back, but I shouted to the caregiver who had been crying on the floor. The two of us together overwhelmed her easily. Khloe had no chance. One of her teeth flew out, spat onto the floor with a spray of blood. I screamed at her. "You knew how much Grandma longed for a great-grandchild, and you lied about my miscarriage. Do you realize what you did? You killed her with your lies." Khloe stopped pretending. She threw her head back and let out a crazed, bitter laugh. "Yes, 3 years ago, if that old woman hadn't stopped me, I would have been the one married to Ethan. I wouldn't be standing here like this. And now, she still refused to give me a single dollar. If I can't survive, then I'll drag her down with me." Ethan staggered toward her and grabbed her by the collar, lifting her off the ground. "Why?" he shouted. "Why would you do this? Didn't you say you loved me? Was the money really that important?" Khloe screamed back, "Yes, it was. I'm drowning in debt. They're after me, Ethan. If you just help me pay it off, I'll have children with you. As many as you want. But you're broke now. You're not Ethan's heir anymore." Ethan let go. He dropped her like she was nothing. His eyes were hollow. "I loved you so much," he whispered over and over. "And this is what you did to me. I loved you so much." Khloe laughed coldly. "You loved me? You never really did. After that night, after I was no longer pure, you looked at me like I was filthy. I saw it. I never forgot it. Then, just days after I left, you married Ava, and now you have a child. Don't tell me you ever loved me." Ethan collapsed onto the floor, his strength gone. He laughed and cried at the same time, his tears flowing freely. I couldn't bear to watch any longer. I turned and quietly walked out of the room. Just then, Leo arrived, his coat dusty and his breath short. He had rushed here. "Grandma is gone," I told him softly. The words had barely left my lips before he turned and marched toward the room, rage burning in his eyes. "I want Khloe dead," he growled. Worried he would do something reckless, I hurried to block his path. "I understand how you feel," I said gently. "But right now, Ethan wants the same thing, even more than you do. Come with me," I added. "Grandfather is awake." After much persuasion, Leo finally calmed down. He followed me in silence as we made our way to Grandfather's room. Grandpa lay in bed, his breathing unsteady, his eyes filled with silent sobs. It was as if he knew what was coming. Then, from the hallway came a cold, mechanical voice. "Bed 6. Prepare for cremation." At that moment, Grandpa's heart and lungs completely gave out. I forced myself to stay calm and rushed to call for the doctors, but it was no use. They couldn't save him. Grandpa passed away. Ethan called the police. When the officers arrived, Khloe gave a weary little smile, as though a heavy weight had finally been lifted. She said quietly, "Prison might not be so bad. At least I won't be beaten to death by debt collectors." I couldn't help but ask, "How much do you owe?" Khloe started counting on her fingers, then let out a frustrated sigh and waved her hand. "I can't even figure it out. A lot. So much that my fiancé broke off the engagement." Ethan stood nearby, his expression darkening further with every word. I imagined that when Khloe came back, she must have told Ethan it was because she couldn't forget him, that she had given up everything to return to his side. But the truth was, she had nowhere else to go. So she came to him. The illusion of his perfect first love was now shattered. No one could withstand such a fall from grace. As we approached the elevator, Leo grabbed Ethan's arm, his voice ice cold. "Stay behind a moment." When the elevator doors closed and we were out of sight, Leo slammed his fist into Ethan's face. Then came another punch, and another. Each hit landed hard, full of fury and betrayal. Ethan didn't fight back, he just stood there and took it. Leo kept hitting him as he cursed through gritted teeth. "You are such a fool! You really couldn't see what kind of woman Khloe was. You let her manipulate you that easily?" Then Leo spoke the truth that had been buried for years. "Let me tell you something. That night, the drug was Khloe's doing. She planned to sleep with you, make it look like a done deal. Then she had the bartender sneak into Ava's room, hoping to ruin her completely. In the end, she would be your wife, and Ava would be disgraced. But Grandma found out. She intervened and protected you. Afterward, Grandma was afraid the truth would break your heart or hurt Ava even more, so she never told you. Think about it, Ethan." Leo turned away, his voice full of disgust. Ethan stood frozen, speechless. I pulled my wrist from his grasp with all the strength I had left. 3 years of misunderstanding were finally cleared in one brutal moment. Ethan whispered again and again, "No, this can't be. It's not true. You're lying, Uncle Leo." Leo shoved him aside. "If you don't believe me, ask the bartender. Khloe paid him well to keep quiet." "You absolute idiot," Leo growled. Then he pulled out his phone, made a few calls, and ended with a single sentence. "From this moment on, there is no place for Ethan in the Vance family." He stepped into the hospital room and left Ethan standing alone. I wanted to say something, to mock Ethan, to make him feel the pain he had caused me, but the words caught in my throat. I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard his broken, tear-filled voice. "Ava, can you ever forgive me?" I paused, took a breath and replied, "Of course." Then I added, without a hint of softness, "Not a chance." Still, he clung to hope. "Can the baby still call me Dad?" Bitterness rose in my chest. If only he had thought of that earlier. With a calm I had never known before, I answered, "Keep dreaming." Leo made sure Khloe paid the price. She was sentenced to life in prison. On the day the court announced the verdict, after the session, Ethan stopped me outside and handed me a small shopping bag. He said quietly, "I bought these clothes with my own money for the baby. Will you accept them?" He had lost weight. The arrogance and elegance he once carried were long gone. My nanny reached out and took the bag. I gave her a look. She understood immediately and tossed the bag straight into a trash bin nearby. I turned back to Ethan and said clearly, "Sorry, but my child does not wear cheap clothes. Do not show your face around me again. My baby is mine alone. Maybe one day the father will be someone wealthy, but it will never be you. Do you understand, Ethan?" Without waiting for an answer, I stepped into the Rolls-Royce that had pulled up beside me. From the rear window, I saw him start his old taxi, following behind like a ghost. I sighed and told the driver to stop. Then I got out and warned him, "Follow me one more time and I will call the police." Only then did he finally back off. Later, he began showing up near the villa every few days, pacing outside like a stray, but the guards always forced him to leave. Eventually, I moved to another city to wait for the baby's birth. I never saw him again. I only heard from others that the once proud heir of the Vance family now wandered the streets, asking everyone he met if they had heard.
What? Amok? Thank you for the follow. Welcome in. I'm here about my anxiety and depression, ma'am. Yeah, like, excuse me? I'm seeking help. Please. Dear, thank you so much for taking the time and effort to read that long poem last stream. I played it over and over and over and changed maybe a dozen words. I love it so much more. Oh, yay. I'm so glad. Thank you all for being here for it. Yeah, or any cat with orange is a little freak. Oh my god, Trop! That's so exciting. Congratulations. I hate the capsule art. Need to fix it. That's fine. That's fine. You're putting it out there. Honestly, so much better. It's the fact that you've done something and put it out there and said, okay, this exists in the world. Or it will exist in the world. It's huge. That's everything. Hi, Carson. How are Carson doing it?